The Perseverance Form, the way of the Krayt Dragon. During an era when Jedi were called upon to more actively maintain the peace in the galaxy, Form 5 arose alongside Form 4 to address a need for greater power among the Jedi. Jedi Masters who felt that Form 3 could be too passive developed Form 5. A Form 3 Master might be undefeatable, but neither could he necessarily overcome his enemy. Form 5 focuses on strength and lightsaber attack moves. This form exploits the ability of the lightsaber to block a blaster bolt and turns this defensive move into an offensive attack by deflecting the bolt deliberately towards an opponent. A dedication to the power and strength necessary to defeat an enemy characterizes the philosophy of Form 5, which some Jedi describe by the maxim, peace through superior firepower. To some Jedi Knights, Form 5 represents a worthy discipline prepared for any threat. To others, Form 5 seems to foster an inappropriate focus on dominating others. As detailed in the Lightsaber update on StarWars.com, Form 5 was a refinement of Form 3, combining the defensive principles of Sirisu with a focus on counters and retaliation, seizing the initiative rather than passively weathering the assault. The Form 5 lightsaber form was unique in that it had two variants. The first was Shien, which was intended specifically for blast deflection. The second was Djem So, which was specialized towards lightsaber dueling. The common element in both was an emphasis on physical strength and lightsaber counters, turning an enemy's attack back on them. With its emphasis on blast deflection, Shien obviously had the closest relationship to Sirisu. As we see in the various demonstrations throughout Star Wars media, Shien had a strong technical focus, combining tight defensive parries with direct and efficient sweeps and strikes, quickly recovering one's guard after attacking. This variant was distinguished by its reversed grip techniques. As Darth Vader noted, Shien was particularly effective against multiple opponents. Darth Bane viewed Shien as a temporary defensive measure while closing the distance. In Bane's view, the primary arm of Form 5 was Djem So. Effectively, the ripostes of Shien adapted for lightsaber dueling, smoothly transitioning from parrying to striking. Djem So shared some commonalities with Makashi, and we see a similar emphasis on manipulating an opponent's blade in the bind. However, where Form 2 was built around subverting an opponent's defenses, Djem So was geared towards overpowering them. This variant was particularly strength-oriented, defending with solid two-handed blocks and countering with hacking cleaves and power blows, aimed at driving back and off-balancing opponents. However, Djem So was by no means crude, as many of its masters performed their attacks with an almost Makashi-esque level of precision and fluidity. With the Shien arm focusing on blast deflection and Djem So built around lightsaber dueling, Form 5 was a very balanced style, its techniques addressing almost any combat situation. It should also be noted that neither variant was limited by its focus. Anakin Skywalker applied Shien very effectively in a lightsaber duel, while the Djem So specialist Ulic Qel-Droma had no issues with blast deflection. However, neither style was flawless. Djem So was specifically noted for a lack of mobility, while Shien was regarded as weak against lone assailants. Based on observed applications, the main difference between the two is that Djem So was based on a continuous straight-line advance with very grounded footwork, while Shien employed a full 360 degrees of movement, with many sidesteps and evasions. The guard positions and maneuvers of Form 5 were detailed in a variety of sources. The Shien ready stance was described in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, blade cocked high at the shoulder in both hands, angled upwards and away. The example stance presented in Star Wars lightsabers and in the Essential Guide to the Force are representations of the Djem So opening stance, also referred to as the Djem So attack stance. A high guard position, blade held above the head in both hands, angled rearwards. Form 5's live combat maneuvers were detailed in the Jedi Academy training manual. On the Shien side of the coin, there was the barrier of blades, where the duelist whips his lightsaber around himself to ricochet enemy fire in all directions for maximum damage, and the Shien deflection, a defensive blast deflection followed by a counterstrike, leaping to close the distance. The signature Djem So moves were the Falling Avalanche, a heavy overhand power blow intended to crack armor and hammer an enemy's defenses, and the Fluid Riposte, a smooth parry and counterstrike. During a lecture on the 7 forms of lightsaber combat, Jedi Battlemaster Sin Dralik was asked for his opinion on Form 5, and his response was this: "I am neither a proponent nor a detractor. One must question any discipline that has lethal potential. However, if it serves to suppress violent opposition and preserve peace, I believe it is a discipline worth knowing." As illustrated by its maxim, peace through superior firepower, Form 5 was defined by its practical focus. The intention was to strike out at evil and injustice, attacking social decay at its root, bringing and keeping peace through assertive action. As Ben Skywalker observed, and I quote, "Dad, sometimes you shouldn't wait that extra day. Sometimes you have to cut the other guy's arm off." Form 5 became something very different in the hands of a Sith. In his manifesto, The Rule of Two, Darth Bane viewed Form 5, or Strong Style as he referred to it, as a channel for aggression, using anger to overpower and brutalize one's opponent. However, I would argue that the most insidious perversion of Form 5 was the personalized version created by one of its greatest masters, Darth Vader, as detailed in the Force Unleashed 2 novelization, and I quote, "Several times Starkiller had strained to detect a hint of Jedi training in his former master's own teaching techniques, but there was little evidence to pore over from a man who let actions speak louder than words, and whose philosophies concerned only power and domination. The only subtlety Starkiller could discern was that, although the lessons were brutal and the cost of failure high, there was no malicious cruelty. Once the equation was laid down, obey and succeed versus fail and die, the rest was entirely up to him." The world was black and white through Darth Vader's mask, Starkiller thought. There were no grays. He imposed this view on everyone around him, and people either fell in line or fell by the wayside. For Darth Treya's commentary on Shien, I will be presenting the dark side version where she comments on how to combat the form. You have him on the defensive. He uses the Shien form. Study his movements carefully and try to emulate them. This form will be useful when you face multiple opponents or ranged attack. Shien also allows you to make more devastating critical attacks. Though Ahsoka Tano's skill set expanded over the course of her career, when her apprenticeship under Anakin Skywalker began, she was a Shien specialist. Asajj Ventress's assessment of her technique was as follows. Now, 45 seconds into the duel, and these matters never lasted long, she found, Ventress was impatient, and had seen most of Ahsoka's basic technique. A combination of rapid switches and feints, darting from one side of the battleground to the other, as if she was trying to exhaust her opponent enough to dart in and deliver the fatal blow. It was very Togrutan. The Revenge of the Sith novelization describes Anakin Skywalker's master-level application of orthodox Djem So technique against Count Dooku. Skywalker came on, mechanically inexorable, impossibly powerful, a destroyer droid with a lightsaber, each step a blow and each blow a step. Dooku backed away as fast as he dared. Skywalker stayed right on top of him. Dooku's breath went short and hard. He no longer tried to block Skywalker's strikes, but only to guide them slanting away. He could not meet Skywalker's strength to strength. Not only did the boy wield tremendous reserves of Force energy, but his sheer physical power was astonishing. and only then did Dooku understand that he'd been suckered. Skywalker's Shien ready stance had been a ruse, as had his Ataru gymnastics. The boy was a Djem So stylist, and as fine a one as Dooku had ever seen. To adapt to his reconstructed cyborg body, Darth Vader was forced to completely rebuild his lightsaber technique from the ground up, creating a custom fighting style that incorporated elements from all 7 forms, with Djem So as its basis. Forte and Kulka were skilled duelists, but Vader was not only faster than Starstone remembered him being on Mercana against Master Chaatuk, but also more agile. He employed his awesome power to put a quick end to the fancy twirling of his opponents, who fell back against the hammering blows of Vader's bloodshot-in blade. Time and again, the 2 Jedi attempted to alter their style, but Vader had an answer for every lunge, parry, and riposte. His style borrowed elements from all techniques of combat, even from the highest, most dangerous levels, and his moves were crisp and unpredictable. In addition, his remarkable foresight allowed him to anticipate Forte's and Kulka's strategies and maneuvers, his blade always one step ahead of theirs, notwithstanding the two-handed grip he employed. Due to these innovations, I regard Darth Vader as the all-time reigning master of Form 5 lightsaber combat. Even that other great Form 5 master, Luke Skywalker, merely followed in Vader's footsteps, emulating his style. As described in Darth Bane Path of Destruction, the benefits of the curve-hilted lightsaber carried over to Form 5, the improved leverage bolstering the heavy power attacks of Djem So. Though Darth Malgus is not a confirmed Form 5 practitioner, he is widely accepted as one, and his final assault against Kaosen Durach is a good benchmark for what to expect from a Djem So specialist armed with dual lightsabers. While the Djem So variant is clearly viable with 2 blades, it calls for exceptional strength, and for those who aren't cyborg muscle tanks like Malgus, the more technical Shien is a better fit for this type of combat, as demonstrated by Ahsoka Tano. Similarly to Malgus, Lord Vindican is not a confirmed Form 5 specialist, but his use of the saber staff is a good benchmark. Largely defense-oriented blade work, using the greater surface area offered by the twin blades to execute tight blocks and quick counters, but constantly advancing. In the hands of a Djem So master, we would likely see a similar approach, but much more heavy-handed. Additionally, we've also seen Form 5 applied to the lightsaber pike, the Shien specialist Kazdan Paratus wielding such a weapon during his final duel with Galen Merrick on Raxus Prime. Form 5 lightsaber combat is the most heavily featured lightsaber form in Star Wars media, appearing in all 6 films and extensively throughout the expanded universe. Any source that features one or more Jedi characters, be it novel, comic, or video game, likely features at least one Form 5 specialist, and it is generally the fighting style of choice for the main protagonists: Anakin and Luke Skywalker, Ulic Qel-Droma, Darth Bane, Plo Koon. The list goes on.